Queen Wu Episode 1 starts with the reign of King Go Nam Yu, who is on a mission to reclaim lost territories that the Han Dynasty took away during the previous king's reign. He is currently in a battle, away from the palace. At the palace, he leaves his queen, Wu He, and the Prime Minister Yul Pa-So. In the king's absence, the Western authority, He Dai Bu, has started to covert regal power. On the other hand, the Northern Queen family is pressuring her to give the king an heir. The scene opens with an intense battle, and when the blood is spilt and victory is left for the winner, a woman adorned in a warrior outfit appears. This woman turns out to be none other than Queen Wu He. She snuck out of the palace to meet with an ironsmith. She paid the ironsmith to restore a bronze sword, and he says it would take a month. She asks him to be careful with it and leaves. On her way out, she is joined by her bodyguard, but some men try to follow them. They are unaware she is the queen and are hoping to make a quick buck by stealing from her. Fortunately, the queen and her bodyguards take them out and reinforcements arrive, announcing she is the queen. Back on the battlefield, the king is determined to reclaim the land the Han Dynasty has taken from his kingdom. He is with one of his trusted men, Mu Gul, and a fellow prince. The great shaman, Sabi, is also performing a ritual to see the king's future. She sees him dying on the battlefield but lies when he asks for a prophecy. She tells him that she has seen his victory, and he sets up with his army after an inspiring speech. A fierce battle soon ensues, and King Go gets injured while protecting Mu Gul. Nonetheless, he keeps fighting until he reclaims victory. Meanwhile, things are getting tense at the palace. The He family are pressuring the Prime Minister to make quick decisions on several state affairs. Yul Pa-So refuses their suggestion, and the Queen steps in to back him up. The officials are surprised that the king has left his throne to the Queen and gave her the right to make decisions on his behalf. After the meeting, the leaders of the He and Go clans secretly discuss the possibility of dethroning the Queen since she has no heir. Even though they plot secretly, Queen Wu is aware of the other clans' desire to dethrone her. However, she is concerned with how the battle is going. Yul Pa-So informs her that the enemy has switched strategy and King Go might actually lose. Queen Wu is intelligent and theorizes a way that her husband can win. This shows that she is well versed in war tactics and a quick thinker. Her wisdom leaves Yul Pa-So in awe, joking that if the queen had been born a man, she would have been a king. With the king sending word that he is returning victorious, everyone in the palace gets ready to welcome him. The queen cleans up and wears her best outfit. However, she is shocked when she visits the king's chambers and sees him getting treatment while surrounded by concubines. Even though she is hurt by his actions, she doesn't show it. She focuses on asking about his injury and watches as the doctors treat the king's wounds. After ensuring the king is okay, she heads to the banquet to calm the officials' worries. As expected, not everyone is happy about the king's return. Many officials from the other clans were hoping he would die. The only clan that prayed for his return was actually the Wu clan. As the king is married to their daughter, their survival depends on his safety. Mu Gul also blames himself for the king's injury and gets locked up in the palace prison. While the queen heads to the banquet, the king talks to Yul Pa-So about his concerns for the queen. Pa-So has a plan to protect the queen from the king's enemies, but the king is wary about his intentions. Pa-So maintains he is only trying to protect the queen and there is no other option but to follow his plan. At the banquet, the He family leader raises concerns that the king is too severely injured to attend the banquet. Suddenly, the king makes a menacing entrance as if mocking his enemies. He checks to see who has come to the banquet and seems pissed that Jolbon is absent. He then makes a toast to all the soldiers lost in the war and calmly sits on the throne. The queen advises him to get some rest and return to his chambers, but he refuses. He says he is concerned since he knows the officials are like wolves waiting for a chance to tear them apart. He is hopeful that as long as his three brothers protect their regions, he will be able to maintain power. As the banquet continues, the Go family present the king with gifts to celebrate his victory. They try to use the injury to bring up the importance of having an heir and ask for the dethronement of the queen for failing to give birth to a son. The king cautions them to stop, but they continue. This annoys the king and he gets up and asks them to leave. After the Go family leaves the room, the king also heads out. However, the Go and He families are only getting started, and a third clan tries to position itself to secure the new queen position if the chance arises. The He family moves to get in touch with their secret spy, dubbed the Hidden One. Myongrim's bold move to ask for the queen's dethronement worries the king. He talks to Pa-So about the issue and insists he will handle it. Later, Pa-So continues his chess game with the queen. Even though she is cornered in the game, the queen refuses to give up. The king meets with her and explains that he has to dethrone her before his enemies do. He wants to protect and give her a chance to run before his enemies get to her. He promises to set everything up and send someone to escort her safely. In this trying moment, the queen recalls a happy time with the king when he told her about his messenger bird. After a conversation with the king, the queen starts contemplating her options. Out of the blue, a servant walks in and informs her that the king has died. The queen is left speechless, and as she processes this great loss, the episode comes to an end. Queen Wu episode 2 starts with a flashback to 28 years ago, during the Dongmying festival. Here we meet a young Wu He who protects Yul Pa So from a conman. Also at the festival happens to be Nam Mu, a young prince. Wu He's skills impress him and he asks about her. The scene then cuts to another flashback, and in this scene we're introduced to Wu He from 8 years back. At this time, she was a young woman, but she wanted to be a warrior. He grows concerned that she has big dreams for a woman. However, things take a turn when the royal family ask the Wu family to give up their first daughter, Wu Sun, to marry the second prince. Wu Sun refuses as she has hopes of marrying the crown prince and becoming the queen. Out of fear, Wu Do threatens to kill Wu Sun, and to save her sister and family, Wu He volunteers to marry the second prince and move to the northern region. A few days later, Wu He is delivered to Go Nam Mu, and they get married and live happily in the northern region. Nam Mu allows Wu He to continue training and loves her for who she is. She grows to love the northern region and Nam Mu, even though he has a reputation for being a savage. She realises he is a man who deeply cares about his people and wants to protect them. We then circle back to 1 hour before the king died and try to decipher what happened to him. After he met with Wu He, the king retired to his chambers for a bath. Among the maids preparing his bath was none other than Wu Sun. She is Wu He's head maid, but scheming behind her sister's back to sleep with the king. Go Nam Mu is well aware of her intentions and keeps turning her away. This annoys Wu Sun and she withdraws to her room to vent her frustrations. Like a snake, the great shaman, Sabi, visits Wu Sun and offers her an elixir that will make Wu He fall in love with her. Out of desperation, she agrees to help Sabi become the chief priest when she becomes queen. Sabi is convinced that Wu Sun will be the next queen as she has seen this in her prophecy. She gives Wu Sun the elixir and mentions only 1 drop is sufficient to make Nam Mu fall head over heels for her. At agreed, Wu Sun pours 3 drops and sends a drink to the king. She asks the maid to lie to Nam Mu and claims the drink is from Wu He. As they wait for the elixir to take effect, Sabi gives Wu Sun a drink with the potion and they end up making love. Wu Sun is so taken by the aphrodisiac that she starts hallucinating that she is sleeping with Go Nam Mu. After an intense romp in the sheets with Sabi, Wu He gets ready to visit Nam Mu's chambers. However, she senses trouble when she overhears the king's maid crying after finding him dead on his bed. She rushes to her room and tests the elixir on her fish. The fish die immediately after she puts 3 drops in the water. Unfortunately, Wu Sun has accidentally poisoned and killed the king. Pa Su and his right-hand man are the first to arrive on the scene. Pa Su sends his man to only inform the queen, and that is how Wu He came to learn of her husband's death. She then rushes to the king's chambers and verifies that he is dead. The other members of the Wu family also arrive at the chambers and quickly start planning how to save the queen. The urgency of the situation is evident as they discuss the queen's options. There is no heir, the king is dead, and his enemies will certainly come for the queen. Pa Su, Wu So and Wu Do get into plotting a way out for the queen to save their family. If the third prince, Bao Qi, takes the throne, he will empower the Chua family since he is married to their daughter. The Chua family leader tried to rebel against Go Nam Mu and was killed, so they hold a grudge against the king and the queen. Meanwhile, if Pei Wei, the original crown prince who was banished, returns to take the throne, the Wu family will suffer an even worse fate. The Wu family can only hope that the Wandang army that had once sworn allegiance to the king and queen will join with Wu He, but that is still a big risk. In the end, Pa Su suggests that the queen should run away or get into levirate marriage with one of the king's brothers, like Bao Qi. Even though he is a prince, he would need justification to stand a chance at getting the throne. He can get that justification by marrying the queen and getting the support of the Wu family. However, Bao Qi is known to be a savage and Wu Su quickly refuses to allow Wu He to marry him. However, she makes up her mind and agrees to the marriage. Wu Sun tries to dissuade her sister, but Wu He is smart. She quickly figures out that Wu Sun is hiding something from her. Meanwhile, Pa Su sends his man to arrest everyone who served the king that day. He is trying to keep the king's death a secret to give the queen enough time to escape while also trying to find out the truth. It is agreed that the queen will travel to Bao Qi's region and convince him to marry her. For their plan to work, Queen Wu has to return with Baoqi the next day before the Jaeger conference. Wusu worries that the journey might be dangerous, but Pasao mentions that Wu Gao, the trusted king's warrior, will protect the queen. Mu Gao is released from prison and Pasao notifies him that the king is dead. Mu Gao assumes that the king might have died from his wounds and considers committing suicide. However, Pasao reminds him of the king's orders to protect Queen Wu if something ever happens to him. Mu Gao sets off to hire a new horseman called Mochi. Mochi used to be part of the Wang Dang and was kicked out. Now he is drowning in gambling debt and agrees to help Mu Gao for a hefty sum of money. Before leaving, Queen Wu frees Go Nam Mu's messenger bird and leaves a note about her next chess game. She remains optimistic that she will return and finish the game with Pasao. The Queen and the Wu family quickly make preparations to sneak the Queen out of the palace before nightfall. Everyone is anxious about the journey and convincing Baoqi to marry Queen Wu. Wu Dou orders Wu Sun to make sure that Queen Wu will seduce Baoqi by all means possible. With everything set, the Queen, led by Mochi and Mu Gao, sneak out of the palace. As soon as they leave, Pasao orders the guards to lock the gates and puts Wang Dang soldiers all over the palace for protection. He also continues looking into the king's death and discovers Namu was poisoned. He summons a royal physician from the palace jail and orders him to find the culprit. Speaking of which, someone tries to send a message to alert the people outside the palace that the king is dead. Pasao had anticipated this and ordered his men to kill all the messenger birds leaving the palace, but one bird escapes. Pasao retrieves a vinegar written message from one of the birds and deciphers the message. He quickly realises that there is a spy among them and the queen is in grave danger. The bird that escaped delivers a message to Myong Rim. The letter informs him that the king is dead and the queen has left the palace to meet with Prince Baoqi. They also ask Myong Rim to send an assassin to kill the queen, which is where episode 2 comes to an end. Queen Wu episode 3 starts with a flashback to 28 years ago. Around this time, the king announced that the winner of the national chess games would receive a high position in the government, regardless of their age or social status. A young Queen Wu disguised herself as a boy and attended the games. She ended up winning, but upon getting spotted by her father, she quickly took off. When he saw her, a young Go Nam Mu was once again impressed by her. We then circle back to 6 years before the king's death. Go Nam Yu travelled to the rural town of Amnogok in West Goguryeo to appoint Yeol Pasao as his prime minister. It goes without saying that the official tried to protest this appointment. They felt that Pasao was a mere farmer and a descendant of the royal family of Juna. Namu's grandfather killed Pasao's family. As such, the officials worried that Pasao might be holding a grudge against the king. However, the king remains adamant in his decision and threatened to slaughter any clan that opposed him. He also clarified that Pasao was never to fight with a sword, but with words. He wanted Pasao to use his intellect to protect the kingdom. Back in the present, Yeol Pasao keeps busy investigating the king's death. He is surprised when he finds out that Wu Dou killed every suspect in the holding room. Wu Dou thought it best to kill any servant who might talk about the king's death. You know, the dead tell no tales, but will this harm the queen? Speaking of which, the queen journeys to Baoqi's region, but everyone on her team remains on high alert. They spot a group of farmers on their way, but Mu Gao and Mochi quickly realise that they are not farmers but actually assassins. When they stop for a water break, they decide to handle the matter quietly. However, the assassins come in tenfold and manage to reach the queen. Thankfully, she can more than hold her own and defend herself. At the same time, Wu Sun continues to eat an elixir she got from Sabi. She starts hallucinating about the king's death, and after dealing with the assassins, it dawns on the queen and Mu Gao that whoever sent the assassins must know that the king is dead. Back at the palace, the royal physician does a test to determine the king's manner of death. His investigation leads him to believe that he was killed by an extract from the lily of the valley. However, only the country manages to flower. This means that whoever killed the king works within the palace. Pasao orders his men to search the palace and investigate any suspicious person. They start by investigating Sabi, but she shows them her elixirs and points out that they are not harmful to anyone. She asks about the king, saying she can't see his star anymore. However, no one gives her an answer. Instead, she warns Pasao that he might be in danger because his starlight is dimming. Later, she sends one of her servants to investigate what is happening in the king and queen's chambers. As for the queen, she finally gets to Baoqi's region and is shocked by his excessive display of power. He has bodies hanging in the forest to send a message to his enemies. Within his region, there are fierce warriors known as the White Tiger. Anyone who dares to make eye contact with them ends up dead. And then finally we meet Baoqi himself, the savage prince who kills his people out of boredom. Currently he is playing a manipulative game with some of his residents. He keeps asking if they believe he will be king after his brother's death. No matter the answers his subjects give, he gets angry and kills them. He has always been bloodthirsty and craving power, and in fact he actually killed his nanny when he was young and kept trying to invoke fear in people. The Queen's arrival here ruins his game, and he rushes to welcome her. He questions why she would make an unannounced visit late in the night. The Queen lies and explains that she is on her way north to deal with a traitor. She adds that the king sent her because he is indisposed due to his injury. She lies that the king asked her to deal with the traitor who brought up her dethronement in the same way he dealt with his elder brother. In a flashback, we learn that Namu sliced his brother's nose before banishing him. Balki witnessed this and grew terrified of the king after this incident. As they talk, Balki remains wary that the Queen is there to gauge his loyalty. He cautions his right-hand man Chang Hyun from speaking aimlessly. He is afraid the Queen will frame him as a traitor and get him killed by the king. He grows afraid that his brother is lurking by, waiting for a chance to attack. He therefore sends Chang Hyung to investigate where his brother's soldiers may be hiding. After the meeting, the Queen decides that she will not marry Balki after all. She has witnessed firsthand his inhumane actions and refuses to give him more power. She opts to try linking her fate to a different prince. Unfortunately, travelling to another prince will take time and they are running out of that. She convinces Mughal to help her and they should escape. Wussu continues to have hallucinations. The guilt and desire to ruin her sister's chance to be queen takes over. Wussu still believes in the shaman's prophecy though that she will be the next queen, and in fact she sends a message to the He clan informing them of the king's death. The He clan worry that the Hidden One has made a move. They also worry that the queen is trying to secure her position by liking her fate to Balki. They start plotting on how to prevent the Wu family from taking the throne again. Heibu, the clan leader, opts to seize the queen and wait for the perfect opportunity to label Balki a traitor. He plans to use Balki to do his dirty work and leave Wu Sun in the dark. To set his plan in motion, Heibu sends his secretary to inform Balki of the king's passing. Back at the palace, Passu figures out who received the letter sent by the spy. He realises that only the family related to the original crown prince would have been so brazen. He starts plotting a way to save the queen, and at the same time, the assassins who survive send a message to Myong Rim informing him that they failed to kill the queen. The queen and her team sneak out of Balki's palace and make a run for it. By the time Balki learns that the king is dead, the queen is already miles away. As expected, Balki is furious after realising the queen's real intentions. He talks with Chang Hyung and starts plotting how to use the queen to his advantage. He summons the White Tigers and asks for their help to hunt down the queen, which is where episode 3 comes to an end. Queen Wu episode 4 starts with a flashback to 18 years ago, when the previous king summoned all of his kings to his deathbed. This was the first time Queen Wu visited the palace. Milwu welcomed them and led them to the king, where everyone was waiting. The king then declares Go Nam Mu as his successor. No one is more shocked than Pao Wei by the king's decision. In retrospect, we learn that the king came to this decision because we knew only Go Nam Mu could reclaim the land the Han dynasty took from them. He also knew that Pao Wei and the He clan were in cahoots to take the throne for their advantage. After the proclamation, an official ceremony was held and Go Nam Mu was announced as the new king. It comes as no surprise that Pao Wei tried to take Go Nam Mu down but lost. We then circle back to Balki at his palace. He's plotting his next move, but Chang Hyung warns him to be cautious. Even if he gets Queen Wu to forcefully marry him, he still has a wife from the Jua family. The Jua family will fight back and he needs to be on their good side too. In a twisted and diabolical move, Balki decides to kill his wife and her maids. His wife was already angry with him for refusing to save her dad when he was accused of treason. According to Balki, he can get away with killing his wife because her family is not that strong and there will be no barrier for him to marry Queen Wu once he captures her. He asks Chang Hyung to head to the north and convince the mounted warriors to fight by his side. Meanwhile, Myong Rim sends a second group of assassins to go after the queen. He wants her dead and will stop at nothing to make sure she doesn't return to the palace. Speaking of which, things are tense in the palace as the guards continue ransacking the mage chambers, looking for evidence. The maid sent by Sabi tries to get information from Mi Ryu and fails. However, Mi Ryu takes note that Sabi is acting suspiciously when he spots her heading to Wu Sun's room. He informs Paso and together they decide to keep an eye on the shaman. At the same time, Paso reaches out to Yong Bi from the Zhoubon authority. He informs her of the king's death and asks for her help to protect the queen. Back to Queen Wu, she and her entourage take a break to decide their next option. She has to choose between heading back to the palace or going to visit another prince. Moshi decides now is a great time to ask for more money for his services, and is elated when the Queen agrees to pay him double the previous amount. Wusu tries to dissuade her sister from going to a different prince, but Queen Wu refuses. Soon, Myeongrim assassins and the White Tiger warriors catch up to them. The White Tiger warriors execute the Myeongrim assassins but fail to capture the Queen. For whatever reason, the White Tiger leader is moved when Queen Wu protects Moshi with her body and they decide to pull back. Queen Wu convinces Mughal to take a different route after realizing the White Tiger is after them. However, by taking the route, they seal their fate if they are caught, since they will have no way out. In the meantime, the mounted warriors return home after the long battle. They are warmly welcomed and party all night to celebrate their victory. These are Go Namu's men, and he ordered one of his younger brothers to protect the northern region. Another twist arises when Yeongbi attacks Myeongrim's house and demands he call off the assassin. Myeongrim refuses and she kills him without a second thought. She asks the next in line to call off the hit, but a message arrives, informing them that the assassins failed once more. Yeongbi is pleased that the Queen survived and makes the family pledge allegiance to her. She demands to know the name of their spy, but only Myeongrim knows his identity, and he is dead. She sends word to Yeol Paso that the Queen survived, but Mi Ryu takes the partially burnt message after Paso throws it away. At the palace, Sabi realizes what Wusai has done after searching her room. She holds a ceremony to see the king and queen's future, and she is shocked to see a different prophecy from the usual one that she sees. Sabi realizes that she made a mistake and that Woosun was never meant to be a queen. This time, she sees Queen Wu staring at the crows on the throne, which is where episode 4 comes to an end. Queen Wu episode 5 starts with a flashback to 3 years ago when King Namu was at the Goguryeo army headquarters in the border region. He was receiving treatment for an injury. Meanwhile, Wusai worries that Myeongrim is trying to dethrone the queen for not bearing the king and heir. He and Woo-do start plotting how to stop Myeongrim and protect their family. The dubious Woo-do suggests they use Woo-sung to seduce the king. Woo-sun, led with her own greed, agreed to the plan and visited the king when he was recovering from his injury. He mistook her for Queen Wu and slept with her. The following morning, he realised his mistake, but spared Woo-sun's life since she was still his wife's sister. Back in the present, Queen Wu is still on her way to the next prince. Mochi is scared out of his mind since the White Tigers are still following them. The White Tigers realise that the Queen's entourage is heading to Baewuti. Noyum asks his son, Gaoro, to take charge of the hunt. Back at the palace, Yeol Paso continues to investigate the king's death. He is still suspicious of everyone except Mil-woo, his loyal assistant. He deduces that the likely suspects might be Woo-do or head secretary Song-woo. However, he is unsure since he doesn't know the motive behind the king's death. At the same time, one of the maids sends a messenger bird outside of the palace. Woo-do questions if they can trust Yeol Paso while this is going on. However, Woo-so asks him to be patient as it is too early to tell. They can't just kill Yeol Paso without knowing for sure where his loyalties lie. As the investigation at the palace deepens, Song-woo directs the head physician towards Woo-sun. Upon searching Woo-sun's room again, they find the bottle of the elixir she used. The evidence points to Sabi and they check her shrine again. This time, she is unable to deny her involvement after they find more herbs that were used to make the elixir. Sabi refuses to tell Yeol Paso who sent her. She insists it's not Solju and Woo-sun was just a greedy puppet she used. Paso takes her away for further interrogation, but some eunuchs attack them on their way out. In the end, Sabi gets killed and takes the truth with her to the grave. A new mystery arises though as to why the eunuchs attacked the Prime Minister. Song-woo shows up after the fight and asks what happened. Yeol Paso responds that the people who killed the king must want him dead too. Elsewhere at the Eastern Temple, we meet the chief priest, Seol-ju. Her prayer session is cut short though by a message from the Hidden One. As she reads the letter, she recalls Sabi's prophecy that the fourth prince will rise to the throne. Seol-ju asks her assistant, Mao-woo, to inform the faithful at the palace that the time has come. She immediately informs her members the same and they start chanting in prayer. We then circle back to Queen Wu, who is still on her perilous journey. They take a small break to check the road ahead and make a plan. The Queen insists on going to Baewuti instead of the Very. They only have 3 hours to sunrise and Woo-sun tries to convince Queen Wu to turn back and return to Baoki. Mochi unsuccessfully tries to run away with Yu-hua. Also, the Queen starts to find Woo-sun's behaviour even more suspicious. The entourage advances with their journey while the White Tigers are hot on their trail. Mochi starts complaining again, forcing Mughal to tell him about the king's death. This gives the young man a renewed sense of patriotism and a new understanding of the urgency towards the situation. He is unconvinced that running away from Balki is the right move, but still he keeps going. Meanwhile, 2 soldiers light up the road to Beiwatu to see if an enemy is coming. This has been a tradition since the former king's reign. The White Tigers catch up to the Queen's entourage and launch an attack. The Queen Guards try their best to counterattack, but the White Tigers are too formidable. The situation forces the Queen to wear her armour and step out of her carriage. She fights back using her bow and arrow while the White Tigers surround and hook the carriage. To save themselves, Mughal disposes of the carriage. This slows the White Tigers for a while. Back at the palace, Yeol-Paso's suspicions of Songwu deepen, even though it makes no sense why he would kill the king. Paso starts looking into who might have paid Songwu to kill the king. He realises that the eunuchs were after Sabi and not him. Songwu is actually in charge of the eunuchs, and Sabi knows what he did. He killed her to distort the truth, but Paso is onto him. He switches the messenger birds in Songwu's room and waits for the latter to make a move. We then circle back to the Queen. Even though she has managed to slow the White Tigers again, they are still coming for her. She remembers a story the king told her about how the road to Beiwatu was fortified with rocks to deter enemies from Lei Dong from attacking Gagnaseong. Paso's grandfather came up with a plan to help the former king secure the region. As the entourage makes it to their destination, she finally understands why the rocks were set up. She orders Mughal to cut the ropes holding the rocks and have them fall on their enemies. By the time Balro realises what is happening, he and his men are trapped. The rocks come crashing into them, killing them instantly. The death of his son angers Noyum, who vows vengeance on the Queen, which is where episode 5 comes to an end. Queen Wu episode 6 starts with a flashback to 28 years back in Jua Mo Chon. Here we meet a young Yeol-Paso, who makes a gruesome discovery of his grandfather's rotting body in the family library. His father explains to a young Yeol-Paso the family history and how the former king Taizhou felt threatened by the Yule family, so he killed the grandfather. It turns out that Paso comes from a long lineage of great men who used their intellect to save the kingdom on many occasions. However, their achievements led to their family's demise once an insecure king took over. His father wanted Paso to exact revenge on the royal family. To achieve his father's dream, Paso joined forces with Yonbi 6 years back. This was long before he was brought to the palace. Presently, the 5th prince, Go-Ge-Su, is alarmed after hearing the Beiwati walls coming down. He sends someone to investigate and readies his army, waiting to attack the enemy. Meanwhile, the White Tigers mourn their dead. Now more than ever, Noyum is determined to catch the Queen, but swears to kill her. Speaking of the Queen, her team is still on the run. The cartwheels are nearly coming off, but they have no time to stop and fix them. She has her guard up, recalling a conversation with the king. They were talking about who the king fears, and he said he was scared of people who hide their ill motives behind fake smiles. Did the king know about Yeol-Paso's betrayal? It turns out to be worse than we expected. Yeol-Paso moved his grandfather's body and family library to an underground room in the palace. This is where he plots how to bring the royal Go family down. Currently, he is wondering if the Queen is heading to the 4th or 5th prince. He has a whole chess table to think visually of his next move, and it is giving vintage villain baddie energy. Elsewhere, Yonbi readies her soldiers for battle. She thinks that Paso might have killed the king and remembers their conversation 6 years back. Back then, Paso had a backup in place for any situation that might go wrong. Even the Levirate marriage was his idea, but he wanted Queen Wu to marry Balki. He hoped the princes would kill each other in their fight for the crown and ultimately destroy their family, his real dream to make a new Goguryeo. We circle back to Balki, who is still plotting while getting rid of his wife's body. He keeps throwing dead bodies in this palace's pool. That palace must stink so badly. Still, he is not the only one making moves. All tribes are on guard trying to find a way to survive. One tribe opts to remain neutral and stay out of the fight entirely. This is how they survived the last time, but will this approach work this time too? Unfortunately, one of the men doesn't agree and falls into Balki's trap. In the meantime, the Queen chooses the 4th prince to be her new husband. She orders Mughal to take her to him. Paso receives a message from the village soldiers that the Queen is heading east to the 4th prince. However, the White Tigers are still after them. Time is also running out and Paso makes a move. He is more concerned about the Eastern Temple, but why? At the temple, the faithful continue to pray and sense as the Queen and her team abandon their horses and enter the forest. The Queen is hoping to cross the forest and get to the 4th prince soon. Sadly, Wu soon leaves a trace for the tigers to follow, and they do just that. The white tigers find the piece of cloth left behind by Wu Sun and divide themselves into two teams. One team follows the queen into the forest, and the other sends a lantern message to Noyum that the queen is heading to Sabego. In the forest, the queen's team runs into the faithful and a fight inevitably ensues. At the same time, the white tigers arrive and launch an attack on both the queen and the faithful. The queen and her team use this opportunity to make a run for it while the white tigers devour the faithful. In the chaos, Wu soon disappears and later joins the white tigers. She promises to bring them to the queen and secure their safe entry into the fourth prince's fortress. The rest of the queen's team safely make it to the fourth prince's palace. It turns out that Yonwoo is as freaky as his brothers. At this point, I'm starting to think that Go Nam Mu was the only sane one among these princes, right? Yonwoo has a crush on the queen and is elated when she suddenly shows up at his palace. He quickly gets ready to meet and welcome her. Unlike Baoqi, Yonwoo has a sweet disposition. He is easily manipulated though, and not as brave as his other brothers are. He mostly relies on his secretary, Yojin. After cleaning up, the queen meets with Yonwoo and informs him of the king's passing. He is shocked but quickly forgets his sorrows when the queen starts seducing him. One finger lick and a proposal later is all it takes for him to agree to levirate marriage. Still, he is disturbed by the thoughts of Baoqi waging a war against him. He is no match for his elder brother, but his desire to be with the queen overwhelms him. Sadly, he is forced to wait when Wu Sun suddenly shows up, cutting the queen's seduction game short. Outside the fortress, the white tigers stand by, waiting for Wu Sun to open the doors for them. Back at the palace, the plot thickens when Song Wu sends a messenger bird, but Paso intercepts it. The royal physician also discovers that the elixir Sabi made was not fatal to human beings. Concurrently, Wu So and Wu Do show up to ask about the queen and find the guards still searching Wu Sun's room. Wu So is shocked to hear that the guards found poison in his daughter's room. He recalls that Queen Wu had warned him that their family might be framed for the king's death. He immediately burns all the lilies of the valley at the palace. On the other hand, Yeol Paso plans his next move after confirming the queen went to Yonwoo. He worries that she won't be able to beat Baoqi, but his revenge plan is still set, and that is where episode 6 comes to an end. Episode 7 of Queen Wu starts with a flashback to 6 years back, when the Xue and Eo family elders were killed and their chopped heads displayed in the capital. The He family orchestrated this to pressure the king to dethrone the queen. The king sent his soldiers to take Wu Do and Wu So and bring them to the palace. Under Paso's advice, he distanced himself from the queen and thought he was protecting her. Of course, this was all part of Paso's plan to make the king lose favour among the 5 tribes. He continued to keep up appearances, playing chess with the queen and acting like a loyal advisor. Presently, he finally reads the queen's next move in their chess game and realises she is the girl who beat him in the national chess game when they were young. Her game plan was identical. Will this change his mind about the revenge? Later, he and his men burn the bodies of the eunuchs and notice a strange fire coming from the corpses. He takes a little elixir box he found on Sabi before he died. He throws one elixir into the fire and realises that these are made of mercury. These elixirs are the same ones that the faithful are popping like pills at the temple. It makes them euphoric and gives them hallucinations. Meanwhile, at Yunwoo's fortress, Yojin tries to dissuade the 4th prince from marrying the queen and leaving for the capital. Yunwoo insists on leaving and doing things his way. Simultaneously, Queen Wu sends someone to check the road and asks Mochi to keep an eye on Wu Sun. Wu Sun manages to sneak away under Mochi's watch and tries to get to the main gate. Fortunately, Queen Wu spots her and stops her before she lets in the white tigers. The sisters have a much needed confrontation to clear the air between them. Wu Sun admits to her crimes but tries to justify her greed. She claims that she deserved to be queen because she was the chosen one first. However, she wanted to marry the crown prince and refused to marry Go Nam Mu. Anyway, they both draw out their bows and arrows at the same time, but Wu Sun misses. Queen Wu kills her sister and leaves her body at the fortress. The white tigers start getting anxious about the delay and assume Wu Sun has failed her mission. Elsewhere, the 5th prince, Gai Su, sends someone to find out what is happening among the 5 tribes. He is anxious as a lot of strange things have been happening and the palace has been quiet. On the other hand, Baoqi adorns his fancy robes and starts making plans with his entrusted man, Chang Hyung. Not being a patient man, Baoqi opts to head to the palace and capture the queen himself. At the palace, Wu So and Wu Do get anxious about the queen's return. Wu Do draws his sword and threatens Yeol Paso, but he calmly tells them that the queen is at Yunwoo's fortress. At the fortress, Queen Wu learns that the white tigers are waiting in the forest. She refuses to stay locked inside as she needs to get back to the palace. Yunwoo gets scared after learning there is an ambush waiting for them. Still, he chooses the queen and disregards Yeonjin's concerns. His shaman assures him that the gods will protect him, and this gives him some confidence. At the same time, Seolju gets a message that Yeonwoo is set to be the next king. For the past 30 years, she had been banned from stepping into the palace after being accused of inciting the former king. With Yeonwoo becoming a king through a level 8 marriage, her chance to return is finally here. The faithful have been waiting for Sabi's prophecy to come true, and they celebrate the joyful news with gusto. The queen decides to leave the fortress through all of this, hoping that Yeol Pa-seol will take her side and come to their rescue when they reach the ferry dock. It was part of the message she sent him through the chess game. If Pa-seol fails to take her side and show up, they will die at the hands of the White Tigers. The scene then cuts to Yeol Pa-seol plotting his next move carefully. He weighs the pros and cons of every move and decides to save the queen. He believes they share the same dream for a new Goguryeo. At sundawn, the queen uses a distraction to lure the White Tigers in the opposite direction. Mughal sacrifices himself to successfully pull off the ruse. He gives the queen and the rest of the team, including Yeonwoo and Yeonjin, a chance to make it to the dock. He later joins them after the White Tigers realise they were tricked. However, they quickly catch up with the queen's entourage and launch a heavy attack. Things start to look bleak for the queen as they near the dock, with no sign of Yeol Pa-seol. Just when they're about to be cornered, Pa-seol and the palace soldiers show up and help them. Another intense fight ensues, but the queen and her team safely make it to the boat. Even though Noyeom is injured, he remains steadfast in his quest for revenge. He doubles back and attacks the fortress, and he takes Woosoon's body. As the arrow of Jinshi draws by, an anxious atmosphere erupts in the palace. The officials start demanding an explanation while the Woo elders worry about the fate of the queen. Out of the blue, the queen makes a majestic entrance and informs everyone of the king's death. The officials are understandably shocked and demand to know how the king died. However, Daebu raises the question of who will be the next king. The queen introduces Yeonwoo and explains her intent to marry him. Some officials try to object, but she threatens to make them traitors, which certainly makes them be quiet. Balki makes a dramatic entrance in all this, opposing the marriage and stating his rights to the throne. He is shocked when Pa-seol says that Goguryeo laws recognise level 8 marriages and Queen Woo has a right to choose her suitor. He draws out his sword and threatens to rebel. Chang Hyong advises him to leave the palace for the time being. On his way out, Balki kills a soldier to prove his point to the officials and the queen. Everyone starts discussing who they should side with in this upcoming war between the queen and Balki. The queen tells her dad that Woosoon was killed by the White Tigers, and he tells her why he burned the lilies. It turns out that the queen was fond of the lilies of the valley because the king planted them for her. He said it reminded him of the dress she wore the first time they met. Looking back, the king was a true romantic and loved his wife very much. Wooso takes Woosoon's death hard and tries to seek comfort from Woodo. However, his brother is more concerned about survival than mourning his niece. The two have an argument when Wooso brings up the girls' sacrifice and Woodo reveals he castrated himself to avoid a power struggle in the family. After leaving the palace, Balki heads to the Crown Prince to seek his help. The Crown Prince kills Balki's soldiers for coming into his hideout cave. Once Balki informs him of Namu's passing, the Crown Prince is overjoyed and insists on reclaiming the throne. At the palace, Pa-seol calls for a meeting with a few trusted people to talk about strategy and try to prevent the war. The queen orders Mochi to lock Yeonwoo and Yeonjin in a room, and the episode ends with Queen Woo taking the king's seat at the meeting. So here we are up to the finale of Queen Woo, and episode 8 starts with a flashback to 18 years ago when King Go-Namu slit his brother's nose. He spared his brother's life but still needed to send a message to anyone else thinking of committing treason and crossing him. Now the Crown Prince is back, looking to reclaim the throne after joining hands with Balki. At the palace, Mochi refuses to accept his pay and pledges his life to the queen. She gives him a special pardon and allows him to rejoin the Wang Dang. The team moves forward with their plans to win the war. Pa-seol is wary if they will win because the odds are against them. However, the queen is determined to prove herself and win the war at all costs. She is prepared to abandon the capital if it means she will save her people. Mughal suggests they quickly try to win the 5 clans. The queen sends each clan the swords their ancestors sent to pledge their loyalty to King Chu Mo. She asks them to honour their ancestors' pledge and not break the vow. She sends the Chua family a message informing them of their daughter's death at the hands of Balki. This helps her gain their trust and support. She also gets the support of the eastern families led by Seolju. Seolju only takes the queen's side because she believes she will marry Yeonwoo. Based on the evidence, she is most likely the one who was working with Sabi. After learning of Sabi's death, she orders her man to take the body and bury it. She also orders him to kill Sabi's dad. Unfortunately, Balki secures the support of the mounted warriors. He also gets the support of the Hay family and the Crown Prince. However, most of his subjects flee to the capital to get the Queen's protection. Yonbi chooses to play it safe and wait for the war to start before deciding which side to take. One tribe refuses to take any side to save themselves. The Queen also gets support from the citizens as they willingly prepare for war. Able-bodied men and women use their skills, such as sword fighting and archery, to secure the capital. Guisu keeps his promise to his beloved brother Namu and protects the country. To do this, he chooses the Queen even though he doesn't necessarily support her level 8 marriage. While he has no desire to covet the crown, he feels Queen Wu is dishonouring his brother's memory by marrying Yongwu. He begrudgingly agrees to it though, only after the Queen says it was the King's last wish. His support plays a big deal in giving the Queen a better chance to win the war. No-Yum goes back to the fortress and captures Guisu's wife and family. He takes his captives to Balki as an offering and a sign of goodwill. However, Balki goes into a rage after learning they failed to capture the Queen and kills one of the white tigers. It takes everything in No-Yum not to attack Balki and kill him at the moment. Ultimately, they join Balki in his war against the Queen. Paso gets information that Songwu may be planning to side with Balki. He arrests the traitor and promises to interrogate him until he reveals the truth. It turns out that the King and the Queen suspected Songwu even before the King's death. They recruited Milwu to keep an eye on Songwu and convince him they were on the same team. The King and Queen were also aware of his betrayal. She asked Milwu to keep a watch on him and knew about his underground revenge room. Initially, the Queen thought Paso killed the King and was relieved that he didn't. She asked him to join her side and work together to bring about a new Goguryeo. He readily agrees and stands by her side as he heads to war. He realises that even as he opposes the war, the Queen will still fight. It was her long-time wish to be a warrior and it is now coming true. In retrospect, the King had once promised to make her wish come true, and sadly it took his death for her to achieve it. Balki and the Crown Prince head to the palace, ready for war. Even though they're teaming up with the Hua family, they still don't trust them. The Crown Prince has been betrayed by the Hua family before and is looking to get revenge after this war. The two princes also get reinforcements from their enemies. Queen Wu finally talks with her dad through all of this and breaks out of the box he has long put her in. She tells him that even though she's a woman, she will fight and protect her people. She is tired of being a chess piece in a male-dominated game, and this is why she chose Yonwu, as he won't curtail her dreams. The show then ends with Queen Wu joining her soldiers in the war. She uses the bronze sword she had the blacksmith fix, and based on the flashback of the war and way back in the first episode, we can assume that she has won the war, and that is where Queen Wu comes to an agonising end. Ugh, honestly, they better give us season 2 because that cliffhanger ending was pretty disappointing. After waiting for 7 episodes to see the Queen go to war and secure the kingdom in her future, it's cruel to never show us the actual battle. In fact, anyone who watched House of the Dragon, it's quite reminiscent of that last episode, where we were teased a big fight to come and then it never actually materialised. Queen Wu has wasted the build up and the momentum it's gained in the past episodes. Where is the gut spilling and the bloody finale we were looking forward to? Given the fact that we actually had some fight scenes in the first episode, it makes sense to kind of sandwich that around a big battle right at the very end of this show, but alas, we haven't actually got that. Nonetheless, the show has still managed to grab our attention. Queen Wu has proven herself to be a formidable woman on the cusp of her freedom. Even with all the odds against her, she chose to fight for her beliefs and protect her people, and that is extremely admirable. Hollywood, take note, once again K-dramas have shown how to write a proper strong female character. We also have a few questions like why the King kept Yeolpa so close even after learning of his betrayal. Who is running the show when it comes to Son Wu? Do Balki and the Crown Prince turn against each other? Which side does Yonbi choose? Mostly though, we're curious to know if Queen Wu will actually marry Yonwu. Ultimately, Queen Wu ends with a decent finale that lacks that cutting edge to make for an unforgettable K-drama. But even so, it's definitely been worth the ride. And of course, do let us know what you thought of the finale and that cliffhanger ending in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.